All right, this is the Community and Economic Development Committee meeting scheduled for Thursday, February 28th. This meeting is scheduled from 6 to 6:25 p.m. Roll call, David Key, Andy Locker, Linda Plord.
Here.
John Paul Lalonde.
Here.
Rob Carmichael.
Here.
Jim Boopy.
Here.
John Wardwell. Frank Dunbar.
Here.
Mark Eastman.
Here.
Daphne Iyer. Ron Russell.
Here.
And Larry Wall.
Here.
We're going to have an election for a chair. Do I have any nominations?
Nominate Mark Eastman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any other nomination? Hearing none, we'll call that. We'll call this closed. All in favor of Mark Eastman, the chair of the Community and Economic Development Committee, please raise your hand. And none opposed. Mark, the meeting is yours.
Okay, review of the minutes from December of 2018. Did everyone get a chance to look at them?
Yeah. Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Yes.
All in favor? Do you want to go to public participation or go down to...
Yeah, we can go to public participation.
Any public participation?
We're participating amongst ourselves, we're all set.
Okay, all right. Topic 5, discuss possible changes to committee structure. Rich and I have been talking about moving the committee meetings to Thursday afternoon, Thursday before council meetings, this the fourth Thursday of the month. The time might change slightly between 5 and 6, depending on other committee meetings, but it'll be that same night. Is anybody have any input on that?
Will that we restrict our meetings to 45 minutes?
I mean, most likely an hour, I would think, would you, Rich? On a more consistent basis, an hour. Tonight got cut short because of the infrastructure meeting, but typically an hour.
Okay.
Yes, and we thought Thursday would work better because, we're going to work with Jeff on the ordinance for this. The ordinance is written where it says you have to have at least 2 council members, but it also says you have to have 50% of the board to have a quorum. Mm-hmm. So what is it? It can't possibly be both because you can't have 1 counselor and over 50% because you're not meeting the 2, and you can't have 2 counselors and less than 50% because then that doesn't work either. So we're working to get clarification on this committee, and Mark and I will do that with Jeff. So to answer your question, it will go back to about an hour or so each time.
And also, we discussed adopting some term limits. Linda, you had said previously there were some, but Rich has looked and he can't find anything to that effect. So what we'd like to do is stagger some terms for people to, 1, 2, and 3 year to get turnover on the board and operate like the other committees. Does everybody, any questions on that? I mean, we'd still have representatives from the RSU, Chamber, probably move with a Main Street representative.
We'll have to get an ordinance change to make that happen. Right now, what the bylaws said is that the board shall not consist of more than 10 people. So when I inherited the board, it was 15. And it was, you have to have 3 counselors, a member of RSU 25, and a member of the Chamber of Commerce. As people have resigned, I purposely not filled them up because the ordinance says you can't be that high. I nor the town, nor any of the chairs that have ever been on this committee have ever asked anyone to step down, or however you'd like to phrase it. It's just that we just have decided. I made the decision because there really wasn't the chair here to bounce things off of, but I was not going to fill that position just because it was the right thing to do to get us back to where we needed to be.
And I think the other side of that is we kind of need to adopt an attendance policy to...
Yes, that we did have. You were supposed to call in, and if you missed 3 times without calling Rich and explaining, or Dave, whoever, that you were going to be away or whatever, then you were automatically dropped.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't find that either, and with that, what's really hard is there are members who are ex officio. That's the RSU and the Chamber. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to tell them that you're going to be off the board because or a counselor. Yeah, you're off the board because you can't be here. So what we thought would work best was, well, let's change the night to when we know the counselors can be here because they have to be here. And obviously with other things, there may be the option where they can't. And something else we need to decide is, because Main Street Bucksport is an economic development group, shouldn't they be treated equally as the chamber and have an ex officio position for them as well? So, but Mark, you do have a question from the audience.
Come up to the podium, please.
I will, I'll speak loudly. Pete Stewart. My only concern with term limits, as you can see, they're not knocking down the doors, and you don't see people here. And if you put yourself in a term limit, all of a sudden you may only have 3 people up here if you've term limited people out. I would push more for a participation to try to get people in here. They can still talk, and part of the committee structure should be to allow them, to have input, and then maybe you can get some buy-in that way. But my fear with term limits is you may term limit yourself right out of a board.
What is?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah.
In the case of the planning board, they don't actually look for people when your limit comes up. They ask you if you want to continue on, if you want to go for another 3,
And that could be an
it
avenue
goes that way, and I think that
to
works
give
quite
people
well.
yeah, that's a good idea, Jim, because that would give people the option if they wanted out.
Exactly, and then you don't have to worry about there being vacant spots.
Yep.
And that's basically what I'm saying we were
Okay.
doing. Every third year, you were supposed to check
Acknowledge.
in with Dave and acknowledge whether you wanted to continue, yes.
That's fair. Okay, that sounds like a good idea.
Couple thoughts I had. One, I wasn't sure if you had a 3-year term, that meant you couldn't re-opt. But I always think that you need to force some kind of turnover, because I think that's why people don't join committees, because they look at it and go, it's the same people who've always been under. I can't get on. And so you want to foster an atmosphere that allows people to get on. But I do think they ought to be able to, what I'm more used to is you have a term, and you can serve 2 terms, 3 terms, some number of terms, but then once you serve those number of terms, then you have to roll off.
Larry?
That's what I was going to say. The Chamber of Commerce allows you to do 3-year terms, and
That's it.
you have to step back for 1 year, and then you can go again.
Any other input on that, Rob?
I like the staggered. I think the staggered term is an important part of it. Is somebody managing that right now?
No, and that's one thing we're
that was
gonna.
brand new.
That's one thing we're going to have to. Apparently, there was some terms, but we're going to have to get back into it and ask people to maybe email Rich with what they'd like to do, whether that be 1, 2, or 3, with the hope that not everybody's coming up at the same time.
Yeah, it's definitely important that if the committee decides to adopt the term limits, that they are staggered, because like Mayor Stewart said, if everyone gets off at the same time and it's me and 3 counselors, it kind of defeats the purpose of this.
Yep.
But we'll definitely work with any changes that the committee wants with the code enforcement officer to make sure that it's in the code. And again, even though we're currently sitting at 12, and I think we have an announcement to make for a resignation for Mr. Locker anyway,
Yes.
because he can't make Thursday nights. That'll bring us down to 11. In no way am I or Mark or the town suggesting that someone needs to get off because we need to get down to 10. It's the hand that I was dealt when I came here 4 years ago, and we dealt with it the best we can. So please, conversations, if you had them with Mark or I, it was to give you a pre-warning that we were going to be talking about these things, so you had time to think about what you'd like to say, and not for anybody under any circumstance to feel as though they needed to get off, because we needed to get to 10. We needed to get to 10 the day I was hired, but the right thing to have done at that point was for me to get smart quicker, talk to the code officer, say, how do we change this so we can have the 15 people?
Well, and I mean, should we consider more than 10 then?
And
I
that's
mean,
the
if we're
other option.
changing ordinances.
To go to Peter's point, if we had if we're limited to 10, that certainly starts to limit the number of people that might be involved. And if we had a 3-year or 3-3-year terms or whatever, if there was some sort of term limit, then that limits it as well. But if we had a number of 15 people, we didn't necessarily limit the number of people. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that's an issue, really, is it, having too many people?
It wasn't. It just didn't. I like to follow the rules, and
No,
it said in
I
it said in
understand
the
that part of it, but-
yeah.
And, you know,
It
maybe,
really wasn't.
could we reduce, if we're getting all the way into ordinances, could we reduce the quorum and increase the maximum number?
I gotta take a step back and say that there actually kind of is an issue because these meetings are now recorded on the television. There's only so many mics and so many seats up here. So that's the other thing. I mean, 15 of us can huddle up together.
It's going to be close.
Right. So that is what the limit could be. But I mean, we're doing it tonight with 9 at the board.
I mean, I hate to see, and also in the time frame, I know we have to set a date, but I hate to see somebody like Andy not be able to, a business owner, not be able to be at a meeting because, you know.
Well, this is late night. He's open till 8, I think, tonight.
Oh, so.
And
So
I-
any night.
Any Thursday night doesn't work.
Oh, any Thursday,
Yeah.
okay.
And I've talked to him in the past when this had come up because, how do we do this? And I was reluctant to change it from Tuesday because of that reason. I mean, Mr. Boothby and the school board meets the 3rd Tuesday. Main Street Bucksport meets the 2nd Tuesday. The Chamber of Commerce meets the 3rd Tuesday. Everybody meets on a Tuesday. Nobody likes Monday, so that Thursday just made more sense because really the issue we were having was, and I do not mean any disrespect at all, was council participation. I mean, the chair for the last 2 years could be here, but not all the time, and it just made it very hard. Because I'm supposed to be the representative that gets you your information, gets you what you need for the meetings, create the minutes and whatnot, but I shouldn't be dictating to you what, basically my monthly report, because if you pulled up the agenda from the council, you'd have that monthly report. So we really need to get to working and making this all work.
Yeah, and I did talk to Andy, and he'd done it so long that he's ready to step back.
And he's also terming out on the chamber as well, so he did say the same thing to me, that it gives him more time to focus with Main Street and his business. So, I think Jim had a question at one point.
Jim, do you have a question?
I was just going to point out that there are quite a number of seats right here people can sit in if they want to come to these meetings. They don't necessarily have to be on that board.
Does anybody have a suggestion on, a number or the term limits? Or do what Larry said and do, or like Linda said, 3, and you've got to re-acknowledge that you want to be on.
Yeah, it's similar to what you were.
And I might add that the chamber has a max of 15,
Mm-hmm.
minimum 12
As a board,
as a board.
Well, it does get hard to meet the quorum sometimes.
It does. So would
So
it be
that's a
better to
factor.
move somebody have a motion to move the minimum to a different number?
I'd make a motion to move to the minimum quorum of the, are you talking about the maximum?
Both. I
number
mean,
of quorum?
we could do what the chamber does and say 12 to 15 is the number, if we want to do that.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that maximum of 15 people on the committee.
Okay.
would that include a ex officio position for the Main Street Bucksport as well?
Sure.
Is there a second on that motion?
Are we talking minimum also, or just the max?
Well, Rob just proposed a maximum
Yeah,
of
just
15,
maximum,
but we could,
I mean, do we want
right. And we want
to
to
throw a
amend that.
minimum in there as well?
I mean, at this point, a minimum would be 10, but we could raise it to 12 if that's what everyone wanted.
I would suggest probably a minimum of 11 because we have 11, would be a suggestion I would make.
Match it up.
You want to just amend that? I can amend the motion, the maximum of 15 to minimum of 11
I'll second
members.
that.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? And as far as naming term limits, do we want to, Linda, do you have a motion for that?
Goodbye. I think that the 3-year idea to be approached and re-upped after 3 years would be the motion that I would make. And along with Larry's suggestion that after 3 terms you step off for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I propose that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
But you're still going to start with the stagger.
That's you guys.
I think we should.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think we should too.
That's almost a must.
And maybe what everyone could do is just reach out to Rich and indicate where you'd like to be there with that.
Yeah.
Larry does not need to, Jim does not need to, and who would be the Main Street representatives?
It could be John Paul or I,
Okay.
so it doesn't.
Thank you.
And,
Nor do the councilors.
right. And is everybody okay with the fourth Thursday prior to a council meeting, be it 5 or 6?
Sure.
Okay. And still got 10 minutes, Rich, so old business, do you have something too?
Not for old.
New business?
A recommendation from the APDAC Implementation Committee was to work with the Maine DOT to create and implement the Complete Streets Corridor Enhancement Plan. Unfortunately, I met with DOT before we had a chance to have our meeting because we had to have that last meeting canceled. So I did go ahead and keep that meeting with DOT. Mark unfortunately wasn't able to join, but Mike Ormsby, our harbor master, accompanied me, so there was another voice who heard the same thing I did. I've included in your packet, it's a Maine DOT fact sheet, which includes planning partnership initiatives. So when I told Patrick Adams of DOT that the ADAPT plan suggested that we create a complete streets corridor enhancement plan, he asked, well, what's the plan? I said, well, it's from ADAPT. They want us to do this. I said, no, you need to have a plan of what you want to do. You have a plan that tells you to do this. Now you need to go find another consultant or do the work yourself to actually draft the plan. So what I did when he was here, Mike and I drove around town with him, and we looked at crosswalks, we looked at sidewalks, we looked at side streets, we looked at bump outs, we looked at parking on Main Street, and we reviewed all that. His suggestion was, because there is funding from the DOT, and I believe you'll see that in one of the, with the local cost sharing and all that, I think you'll see that in here. His recommendation was to look at the Planning Partnership Initiative. It's the PPI. There's also an MPI, municipality, but partnership initiative, but I believe the reason why he deterred us from that one was cost was maybe a little different. I honestly don't remember and haven't had a chance to re-review the information he sent yet.
So this is kind of like a strategic plan for streets and roads just in the town center, or how throughout the town?
The thought was, because it was an ADAPT plan as of now, and to not stretch it out so far that we're spinning our wheels, was to start at 2 River Road and work its way down to the street light. Now, some of the things that we'd want to do, if they extended into the streets, anywhere where there's been recent construction, there is a 5-year moratorium where you cannot tear up those streets unless there is an emergency, and an emergency is a burst pipe. The example he used. So if we wanted to do, like another opinion on that report was workforce housing and have it next to the mill site. When you talk to housing developers right now, they want some type of support from the town, whether that be run utilities out there. So paving happened on Route 15 to the North Gate entrance, and the lot is just beyond that. We would not be able to run water and sewer out there for 5 years. There's not going to be very many developers knocking on our door to develop that site. So that's the reason why pushing the Park Street expansion with Johnny Wardwell, because there is water and sewer out that way and up that street that will be laid out. So that makes more sense on that end to help a developer. You will get developers who will work with you on that. So the next set of construction is going to, and that is going to happen this late this summer, early this fall, will be from the North Gate entrance where they left off to First Street, just after Frank's building. Then they're going to pick up, also this year, from Bridge Street. The project's going to go all the way through to Ellsworth, so that's going to take care of the rest of Route 1. So anything we want to do in that range, we're pretty much not going to be able to do anything that inquires the roads. Unless we know we want sidewalks to be crosswalks to be redone, and we can get to them while they're doing the project. But you'd have to rush and get those two different areas. I propose we don't rush at anything and we do it right. I'm not necessarily saying let's go get not get one of these companies. I think that we might be able to do a good job ourselves, because right now they are not considering Eastern Maine Development Corporation a partner that we can use. They've presented to me that we could use Washington County or Kennebec County, and no disrespect to them, but I don't think they understand Hancock County or Bucksport or the needs that we have. So another option would be to find an independent consultant. And I believe the funding for this would be up to about $25,000, and I honestly don't remember what the percentage is on what they would cover.
That was with
It's
the
at least
match,
50.
just my quick opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a 50% match.
Yeah.
So what I would propose that we do is form a subcommittee to tackle this. And that can consist of members of this board, members of the public, anyone that you would like to. But I mean, it's...
Do you want to take some time and read this, and then at the next meeting, or provide some, how do you want to proceed with the subcommittee?
Does everybody want to take a look at this and decide, take the time to think about if they'd like to be on a subcommittee for this, and maybe what route we should go? It's being thrown on you. I'd hate for you to make a decision tonight without having read what I'm asking you to get yourself into, or the commitment, because what's really important, besides the fact, yeah, we want bigger sidewalks or we want power underground, is what easements are we dealing with? The parking lots, if someone says, let's get rid of parking on Main Street, no one has said that, please. But if someone says, let's get rid of parking on Main Street, what type of easements are we dealing with in these parking lots? How can someone who needs ADA successfully get themselves from a parking lot to Main Street? Is the lighting adequate enough? So it's going to really dig into deep detail on, if you want to do this, what impact will you have on a portion of your population? So it's going to really take 100% full all-out commitment and really analyzing everything and a lot of research.
So we may want some more people outside of even here that have an interest in that.
I think so. And then if we can make this work, I think what we then look at is how do we connect this and maybe make this for the rest of the streets? How do you make Central Street more walkable? How do you continue Central Street into Bucks Mills and get out that way? But it's all to come, but I would think that you'd want to keep it, and we can bring this up with that subcommittee, but keep it small first. And to this area, since that's what that report covered.
My only thought is that we may be able to do it internally, but I think we're going to find some facets that we can't do. And we're going to have to have a budget to be able to, let's say we determine we really need a landscape architect involved in this in order to, to get, because we don't have the expertise. We don't have the expertise in town. I'm just throwing that out. We ought to have a budget that we can hire expertise where we don't have it internally, either within the group or within the community.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't we all take time to read it over between here and next month, and then get back into it next month?
I think we've reached our 6:25.
Yeah, good. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.